there, good morning. How are you today? I'm Connie Fuksa with Foote Title Group, where we not only handle your home closing and make sure it's a smooth and simple, easy to understandable process, but we also protect your home ownership after the closing. So a lot of times I get together with you guys and I talk about the buyers and the things that the buyers go through, because that is the more involved part of the process. The buyer has so many more things that need to be taken care of. But this week I've been focusing a lot on the seller, because there's so many things that the seller needs to be aware of as well. And sometimes we just forget to talk about some of those nuances that the seller really needs to know about. So thanks so much for tuning in. Today I wanted to talk about the seller selling their house. You have a couple that is getting divorced and they're selling their house. What happens? So first I want to say thanks to one of my real estate partners who actually messaged me and asked me a question about this, because sometimes it's not that I don't know about these things or think about these things, but sometimes you guys have questions about things that maybe don't happen as often. So it's not quite as common in my head to think about talking about to you guys. So the questions are huge, and I really appreciate you taking the time to ask those questions. So please, if you have a question and you don't want everyone else to see it, message me individually and let me know, because it helps me understand what kind of information I'm not getting to you. So, hey there, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Larry and Tony. Hey, I really appreciate your time. Carrie, how are you? Good to see you guys. So let's talk for a second about, I'm selling my house. I'm married, but I'm getting divorced. And what happens? What happens with all of that, and how does that actually work? So as a title company, we take in all of the funds that go that have to do with that closing. So the mortgage money from the new lender, any money the buyer may need from closing, any money if the seller needs some money from closing. So we take all that money in, and then we actually disperse or pay out all of those funds to all these different places for all the bills and all the things that need to be done for that closing. So one of the things that needs to be done, and we've talked about this a lot recently, is the loans that the seller has to pay off needs to be, any loans that the seller has on their property need to be paid off and taken care of. So when we talk about those loans on the property, we've talked about this before, and we talked about it earlier this week. You may have gotten a loan when you actually originally purchased your house, so that loan must be paid off and removed or released from the ownership of that property. And if you had a home equity line or a second or any additional financing you did on that property, that loan must be paid off and released from that property. So when the buyer purchases this property from you, they're purchasing that property with no other bills, no other loans, no other things due that weren't things that they incurred. So we're going to take care of all of that. But what happens to the money after all that's done? So I'm the seller, and as the title company has gotten the information on the loans that need to be paid off. There are certain things that I agreed to pay for the buyer, maybe some closing help, maybe a termite inspection, maybe some things that needed to be done in the house I agreed to pay for. And so once all of those numbers are settled up, then there's some money left over. So that money that's left over, what happens to that? So typically if there is, several people, more than one person, let's say, on the ownership of a property, we would write one check to those people all together, and then they would deposit it and figure out what to do. So in a divorce situation, or also in a situation maybe where you have several owners that own it that aren't married, that maybe college roommates that bought a house together, or just two friends that maybe just bought a house together and they're selling, so they don't want one check to go into one bank account, because obviously they don't all have the same bank account. And so in a seller situation where they're getting divorced, maybe they have some other bills that need to be paid out of this. Maybe there's an attorney's fee for the divorce. Maybe they agreed to a split that's not a right down the middle split of whatever proceeds were left. So what we're going to need and what we're going to ask for as the title company in order to properly pay out all of these costs, including those proceeds, is we're going to ask the sellers, all of the owners, in this case, let's talk about the husband and the wife or the spouses, signing a split proceeds agreement. It's just an agreement that says we authorize XYZ title company, in this case Foote Title Group, to pay out checks in these amounts to these individuals. So they may have asked us to pay another loan off for them. They may ask us to pay an attorney's fee. One of them may be buying another house and they need the money to go to that other closing. So that would be a check that we could write or a wire that we could send that they may be asked. Or maybe they're just splitting the money in a certain way, whether it's 50-50, whether it's 70-30, however that happens to be, and they agreed to it, that would be in this agreement as well. So it's pretty generic, but it basically says, we authorize Foote Title Group to split our proceeds in the following way. And then we will write out who gets what check. So we're going to do a check for $10,000 to Sally Jones. We're going to do a check for $6,000 to Michael Jones. We're going to do a check for $3,000 to Susie Jones. And so it actually enumerates not a percentage, but an actual dollar amount on who gets what, how that is going to be split up. And then if they want us to do something like I said, for example, maybe one of them is buying another house immediately and it needs to go to another closing, it would say, send my $10,000 proceeds check to XYZ Title Company in Bermuda, Florida, wherever they happen to be going. So hopefully, they have that all settled out and everything's all decided before they actually get to the closing. So we know who to write those checks to. So that'll define how that happens. And like I said, the same is true if it's a husband and wife splitting the proceeds, if it is two spouses splitting proceeds, if it is several people splitting proceeds. We're just going to ask them to sign a document that breaks down what that looks like for us. So we know exactly how it is. And also so we have something in our file, because we get audited by insurance underwriters every single year. And so we need to have our ducks in a row to make sure we have all the paperwork that tells us what money goes where. And so you as the seller are going to need to be prepared when you come to closing to know exactly how much needs to go where. Or you're going to get one check with everybody's name on it and you're going to have to figure out what to do. And so sometimes that happens because you have spouses that come to the closing that don't get along and they don't know what to do, and they come to closing and they want us to make some type of decision or choice or design something, and we absolutely can't do that. So what will happen is, in that scenario, if they haven't decided, we'll write one check with both their names on it, and they can hold on to it until they work out what those pieces are, and then we can either recut that check, or one of their attorneys can deposit it and get that taken care of for them. So unfortunately, we're not divorce attorneys, and well, fortunately, because that's really not where I want to be. But if you come to the closing table having that in your mind on how you want to break those things out, it makes it a lot easier for everybody and not so uncomfortable for you and the people that are with you as well. So hopefully that helped you understand that part a little bit. Like everything else, we'll have a discussion with you. We'll talk about it before closing. And so that way, when you come to closing, you'll be prepared and won't be in an uncomfortable situation. And then we'll just split it up and ask you how that needs to be taken care of. So let me know how that worked. Give me a thumbs up if you liked that information. If you liked it and you think there may be somebody that might get some good information out of it, share it. Hit that share button down on the bottom and share it with the people that you know, because there may be somebody out there that's in your circle that may have this question and doesn't know exactly how to deal with it. So give me a thumbs up and hit the share button, and I really appreciate your time today. And if, as I said, there's something that you need to know or that you have a question about, reach out and let me know. You don't have to put it in the stream information here. You can put it right in a personal message to me. You can email me, Connie at footetitlegroup.com, or you can email anybody in our team. We do work in Maryland and Virginia, but this broadcast is not specific to those areas. That's pretty standard common practice throughout the country. So anywhere in Maryland and Virginia, we do closings in both of those states, anywhere in those states, and we can help you take care of that. I'm Connie Fuksa with Foote Title Group. Thanks so much for tuning in to Coffee with Connie. I love talking to you guys, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.